just followed for 200 centuries. The Diamond Jubilee Thames Pageant, today at 1:30, BBC One and BBC One HD. A party 60 years in the making.
Who is with a party of artists. They're getting ready for the first sighting of the first boats at the Millennium Bridge. Anneka.
Well, hello again. Hello again. We are having such a brilliant time here. This bridge is getting very busy. We're at the Millennium Bridge. We're calling it the Arts and Crafts Bridge today. Oh, well, listen, we're building up to the big moment now. Back to you.
The Palace of Westminster on the left-hand side, slightly more modern, iconic view of the London Eye on the right-hand side there, as the flotilla heads towards Westminster Bridge. Well, back at Chelsea, some of the public service craft just moving past, moving up towards Cadogan Pier, and they're certainly going to be one of the features this afternoon. The fire boats saluting in their own special way. And the bells, complete with John Barrowman on board. I don't know if he's got some earplugs, because they've been going ever since we saw them at Cadogan Pier some way back. Well, this is where we're all going to end up as we hear one of the salutes to the Queen that have happened over the last 2 days. Just outside the Tower of London, part of a 41-gun salute, followed by a special salute by the Beefeaters. And there are the Commonwealth flags. I have to say the parade is, the pageant rather, is pretty much spread out. Princess Eugenie there, with her father, of course. The Duke of York and the rest of the royal family, making very steady progress down the river.
We'll catch up with you later.
At this point, let me introduce you to a gentleman who's sat beside me in the commentary box, sailor and author Tom Cunliffe. And I tell you what, he knows everything there is to know about boats, but also, more importantly, I think, Tom, navigation. Now, because of the twists and the turns in the river, are any of these boats going to have a problem at all today?
Well, what's interesting actually is that I'm watching the flags on these boats, and they're blowing across the boats, which is making it quite gentle at the moment. But when they turn to the right at Westminster, they're going to have it smack on the nose, which means Her Majesty's going to get a bit chilly, and the man-powered boats are going to have much more of a struggle than they've had so far. But looking at them, they seem to have been managing pretty well.
National Theatre, the Royal Festival Hall, and we've got some semaphore here just on the top level of the Royal Festival Hall. Tom, I think you can understand that, can't you?
I haven't got a clue.
There was me thinking we had an expert in the room. I think it's sending best messages to Her Majesty the Queen.
Seeing the boats come through the bridge here is fascinating, because shutting the Thames barrier has meant there's very little current. If the current was sweeping down here, as it would have been otherwise, some of these boats would have been in danger of being swept onto those pontoons of the bridges. But it's a magnificent effort that's been made to essentially cut the current by manpower, which has made this whole thing a lot less dramatic than it otherwise would have been.
Well, certainly the Thames barrier, which we won't be seeing today, is a masterpiece of engineering. Just makes you wonder, actually, how they managed, when the Thames barrier wasn't there, to have things like pageants on the river, which of course they did a long, long time ago.
Well, there were a lot less bridges in those days, Paul, and also the river was a lot wider, so the currents would have been a lot slower. But today, to put something like this on with a full ebb tide, which it would have been, well, frankly, pretty hairy. There would certainly have been some incidents.
But so far, so good today. Now the National Theatre, and a very special moment for the Queen, the home of that great theatrical production War Horse, which I understand the Queen is a great fan of. There it is on top of the National Theatre, and even the horse saluting. That moment has taken them 9 months to prepare. We certainly know what a passion she has for horses. I hope the Queen enjoyed that moment. The horse, the star of the show, if you like, is called Joey, and I understand she had a visit from Joey at Windsor a little while ago. There is Joey, just making his own little bow to the Queen and the rest of the guests on the royal barge. Very, very clever.
It's great that the narrowboats are able to do this, because if it had been really windy they were going to get blown out, because they're not designed for seaway at all, and the Thames can get pretty rough, but we've been lucky with the weather.
Nobody has sat down, nobody's disappeared really off that top deck. Everybody wants to get a fantastic view. Well, the longest, or one of the largest pictures ever created on the side of the Sea Containers building. I think it is a picture of the Queen's Silver Jubilee celebrations.
I was down on the water yesterday, and I have to say that picture is enormous. Enormous.
Going all over the world, not just to Commonwealth countries either. Some way ahead of them, HMS Belfast on the right-hand side, and well, we could have mentioned this word time and time again, iconic, and Tower Bridge is about as iconic as it gets.
And approaching us here, the Gloriana, it is the most spectacular sight as they make their way up here towards Tower Bridge. They're passing HMS Belfast, and it really is amazing.
We have been waiting for some time, as have this very expectant crowd just below the studio, and suddenly this wave of energy approaches, and the belfry, it is literally just like a floating cathedral. I mean, the sound is just magical.
Anna, you know, put this in, you know, in history terms, this is a people's pageant now, isn't it? I
That
mean,
was my line. It's the people's pageant. It is the people's pageant. I mean, it's the Queen's pageant, of course, but look at it. I mean, it's the people's pageant. People on the river, people at the sides cheering. I mean, you know, the Queen, the pride which she's going to, you know, look out over the river, see everybody waving. Look at all the cameras. I mean, you know.
I've just spotted my 70-year-old dad out there.
Sophie's dad's out there.
Yay! He's made it. He's made it. Isn't that wonderful?
It just hits you, doesn't
It is. I mean, it is Canaletto brought to life. I mean, all the colours. And it's just so democratic. I mean, of course, we've got the Queen in the middle of it, but look at it, surrounded by people. And even the rain's now here.
Yeah.
And
It's
the
so
Royal Barge
British.
will be here any moment now. But Adrian Evans, the man who came up with this, you know, 3
This is
years
it.
in the making, he wanted it to be even longer. He wanted it to start in Hampton Court Palace and come all the way up here. It was slimmed down a little bit, but not that much, was it?
No, the vision has totally been fulfilled. I mean, look at it. And even look at all the cheering crowds. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. And this is what the Queen's reign has been building towards, I think. You know,
Well, surely this must be, well, one of the biggest honours, if not the biggest honour that she's kind of ever witnessed to see in front of her.
Absolutely. I mean, and of course, there must be a sense of trepidation. You know, what's it going to be like? How are people going to react? And when we've got the diaries of Queen Victoria after her Diamond Jubilee, and actually they've just gone online, and she talks about, you know, oh my goodness, no one would have had an ovation like that. The pure joy in people's faces.
And you know, she hasn't sat down.
She's
She's standing there.
She's-
We're
I mean-
watching her standing there. She has not sat down. 86 years old.
I've never
and
seen
she looks like she's just
the
having a
royals
wonderful
just so
time.
animated. They're genuinely engaged and enjoying it. She's not going through the motion. She's loving it. When the war horse was there,
I
mean, she loved that.
She was pointing. Did you see that? Did you see that?
And of course, that's got historical precedence. On Anne Boleyn's barge, she had a fire-breathing mechanical dragon. So, you know.
Right, well, listen, as the belfry reaches, just reaching the Tower Bridge there, an incredible sight, isn't it? HMS Belfast. All
Some
out.
tired rowers out there.
Well, this is almost their kind of finish point, I guess, isn't it? The end is in sight for those.
Amazing job that they have done. And the Royal Barge will be in sight here shortly. There it is. The man-powered section coming past HMS Belfast.
Give Claire Baldwin to go on the oars, yes.
And you have to remember, those rowers, they have been out there probably since about 10 o'clock this morning. They've been on their boats.
I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's simple. I mean, I know it sounds silly to say, but it's everything, even like toilet breaks and stuff like that, you know.
That's a big consideration.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I don't think we're going to go to that
I was
one.
worried there might be some,
You
you
just-
know, indiscreet moments we might capture.
You just roll cross-legged.
Making very good progress indeed is the row barge. All the bells still ringing underneath Tower Bridge. And eventually the royal party will be tying up at HMS President, you just saw on the right-hand side of the screen there, which is home to the London division of the Royal Navy Reserve and has been since 1988.
So we're ready to go. It's just
And is that the lever that you're going to be
pulling
pulling?
the lever, yes, and then the basket will raise.
Now, you've done this many, many times before. Are you
Hundreds of
feeling
times.
hundreds? Are you feeling a little bit nervous today?
No, it's exciting, not nervous. It's an exciting day, and everybody's having lots of fun, and it just makes it that more special.
So nothing can go wrong.
Keeping our fingers crossed.
Can anything go wrong, though?
It could do. Anything can go wrong. We're working with a piece of machinery, but it's very reliable, and hopefully everything will go fine in a couple of minutes' time.
All right, well, I can see they're almost going to come through, so I'm going to get out of your way and let you get on with your job. Eric, good luck.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Off you go.
Well, those bascules will be moving very shortly. Of course, all of those craft totally and utterly dwarfed by HMS Belfast, which was commissioned in 1938, 91,000 tons, the largest cruiser in the Royal Navy. So not too much wind, Tom. everything looking pretty good so far.
No, I mean, it really has worked out for the best. I can't believe how lucky we've been, because the weather forecast looked extremely iffy. Nobody could have really predicted what was going to happen with the weather front that was hanging around over London. But isn't it great to see all these boats rowed by these fine, strong people going past HMS Belfast? They could have crewed her in World War II, couldn't they? They'd have been, they'd have been signed up, wouldn't they? And here they are, celebrating the Queen instead.
Flags of the Commonwealth once more, still flying proudly on top of those Trinity 500s, doffing their caps as they pass the Royal Barge. Royal Barge, of course. Here we are. Some of the guests are sheltering from the rain. And of course, the weather is the one thing that nobody has got any control of at all. Queen, of course, is head of state in 16 of the 54 Commonwealth member countries, all of them now fully independent, which, apart from the UK, she is represented by a Governor-General. And I promise you, those bascules will lift in just a couple of moments' time. 1,200 tons each arm, if you like, or each drawbridge section of the Tower Bridge weighs, can be raised to their fullest extent of 80 degrees in an amazing 60 seconds. And the dispersal now begins. A lot more boats to come through Tower Bridge, obviously, and they'll all be watched eventually by the Queen when she leaves the Royal Barge. But the weather really has deteriorated, Tom.
Yeah, the rain's coming down now, but mercifully it doesn't seem to have produced a lot of breeze to go with it. And it's great to see what good spirits people are in, even when they're being towed. There's no sense of humiliation, because there's no failure here. This has been a tough row into this east breeze. If it had been any more than this, they'd have had to scratch the event for the rowing boats, but they've muscled it out, and huge credit to them, even the ones that have ended up on the tow.
I'm sure some of the active rowers, as we see one of the many music sections in the pageant, I'm sure a lot of the rowers would probably appreciate the tough challenge that lay ahead and will be very satisfied with what they've achieved so far.
Well, yeah, because these are not, most of these boats are not racing skiffs. Some of them are actually working boats that were built to carry stuff, which are really heavy to row. There's a Yorkshire cobble in there, and that's very heavy to row, I can tell you that personally. And there's a trow from the rivers of the Western England that was built to carry cargo. A very, very heavy load indeed to row.
The gentleman who received the Victoria Cross, Mr. Johnson Bahari. We've seen him on television a few times, but what an achievement. At some cost too, I have to say, but a VC holder aboard the Sapele. And the pageant is simply full of music. On board the Valula there, just one of the bands of Her Majesty's Royal Marines. There's a couple of bands on the river today. We heard them giving the Queen a fanfare a little while ago too. HMS Belfast is about to be flanked by the Royal Barge, and the Royal Barge is about to receive a very impressive salute from some of the personnel on board. Veterans and sea cadets on board HMS Belfast. We got off to a bit of a false start with the basculas, but they are about to be lifted for the Royal Barge. What a sight. An extraordinary machine lifting an extraordinary road into the sky. Once again, the Royal Marines trumpeters.
Now, Jim, how was that to cheer the Queen just then and have her acknowledge the HMS Belfast?
That was really wonderful. It's something that I never ever thought I'd see, but it's something that I'll always remember.
Now, Jim, you joined the Navy when you were 15 years old, and I was chatting to Jim earlier, and you told me some amazing stories. One when a torpedo hit your ship, you were thrown 60 feet into the air, dropped into the ocean, and then had to cling on to a dead shark until you were rescued. Was that enough to put you off diving?
No, I dived from 16 and a half until I was 85, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Wow, well, it's lovely talking to you, Jim.
That is a very, very clever bit of manoeuvrability that the Spirit of Chartwell has undertaken there. Absolutely perfect so far. I just hope I haven't put the kiss of death on it now, but such precision.
No, it's a pleasure to watch, isn't it? I bet some of the other people in the flotilla would be pleased if they could handle their boats like that.
I can't even park my car as carefully as that.
No, well, I think the thing is, people don't realise that boats do not drive like cars because the whole medium they're working in is moving around all the time. If you stop, they tend to blow about. So nice to see there's no breeze, but there will be a little bit of current moving past there. And if you look at the bottom of the pontoons, you can see there's some movement on the water, a little bit of a sea running.
So the royal party will be watching the remainder of the pageant from the first floor of HMS President. Well, I think the captain of that ship can be very pleased with his day's work. Beautiful pictures of a beautiful boat. Shame, such a shame, the weather has taken a turn for the worst, and it really has probably put a bit of a dampener on some of the things going on, but not all, that's for sure.
No, sailors are used to it.
Pouring with rain here at Tower Bridge, absolutely pouring, but it's not dampening the spirits. The people out here waving as all those boats go by, an amazing procession of vessels coming past us.
It's the characters on board as well. It's not just the boats that make up this flotilla. It is indeed the characters, and there's a likely bunch, isn't there, on the Zephyr?
There certainly is, and Sandi Toksvig is there, a bit further back from Tower Bridge, but she's going to tell us plenty more about where she is. Sandi.